All right, I'm going to start this by creating an imprimatura, and to do that I'm going to mix a little dioxazine purple, little cadmium red medium, perhaps a little more, and then quite a bit of water, and I'll just apply that in a random fashion. I'm going fairly dark. And I just want to smooth it out a little bit. And because I'm impatient, I'm going to put some hot air on it. That should do. And I usually wouldn't do this on my own, I think, but just so you'll know what's going on, I'm taking a white chalk pencil and I'm going to give myself a horizon line up there, and I'm going to come down to a little over, well, a little under halfway down, and give myself another one. Now I think to establish the initial tones, I'm going to start on the foreground, and I think I'm going to do that by using some yellow ochre and a little bit of white. My palette is in a little bit of disarray because it has been unused for some time. But you can see that I'm just quickly mixing the white and the yellow ochre, and I think just to be clever I'm going to throw in a little bit of orange. You notice I'm going to be using quite a bit of paint here, so I try not to skimp. I may not have quite enough, but we'll see what happens. So working rapidly, I'm just going to cover this part of the foreground. And because of the broken ground texture I applied, I'm getting a lot of variability. And I don't want that much, so I'm going to take a 1-inch brush. This is a synthetic, it's a nylon, and I'm just going to smooth these together. see that I'm not making all of the strokes in one direction. I'm trying to keep a random quality to this. And as I come down into this corner, I think, just to be clever, I'm going to add a touch of burnt sienna. And I'm essentially working wet in wet now. Okay, there we go. Now most of this will remain underpainting. So now I'm going to use a little more cadmium red, and I need to add some burnt umber to my palette. And a touch of purple. Okay, and I'm going to put in a darker passage here. You see that the foreground color is still wet enough that I can blend those two areas if I wish, although I'm probably not going to end up with it being like that. But I am going to fill in a little down here so that the painting will be a little more unified. Now, wipe most of the color out of the brush. And I'm going to use this is a cobalt blue and a little dioxazine purple, and I have them both on the same brush. And I'm going to put that in here on the top third. I wouldn't want to use a brush that's smaller than an inch for this because it would just take too long. So I'm going to let those blend together a little bit. Don't know whether that'll stay or not. But good place to start. Now, I think I want to make this area a little less transparent, and the easiest way for me to do that at this stage is to use a little white, titanium white. Mix that in with dioxazine. Of course, that will create a tint, but it will significantly impact its transparency. Now, I'm working essentially wet in wet here. And this is underpainting, so I'm not too worried about precision. I'm just trying to establish the the basic value. Now, actually, I'm working so fast that I'm going to have to take a moment to let it dry. So I took advantage of the pause to add some more paint to my palette. I see I got everything I wanted except for more titanium white. The panel is not quite dry, so I'm going to use the hair dryer again. Now I'm going to work in the foreground some more. This time I'm choosing a very abused and fuzzy, used to be a filbert. You can barely tell now, but so it's almost like a mop. And I love this brush for this kind of work. So here we have a little titanium white, yellow ochre, just a tad of cadmium orange. The colors I used before. This is now dry, so I'm going to come in again. And you'll notice that I'm letting some of the imprimatura and the background, the underpainting, show through, because I want to build up a complex set of layers. I want this to be interesting, but this is not going to be where my center of interest is going to be. The center of interest is going to be more up in that area. And I'm going to make it a little more interesting by adding, a touch of cadmium yellow light, a little white, a little more orange. That's brightening this quite a bit, and I suspect that's going to end up being too vibrant and luminous, but so be it. So I just added a touch of cadmium red. And I want to see what happens if I switch tools now. So I'm using my standard beat up palette knife, and I'm going to use the same colors. I've got some yellow ochre and cadmium orange, a little bit of white. I'm going to use a little bit of yellow. I think some more white. I want this to be, if I can, a little bit more or less translucent. Now that may be too much. Let me give it a try. Well, no, I know it's going to be too much. So adding a little more cadmium yellow. Here we go. Now I've just picked it up on the palette knife, and now you see, because the values are closer, that texture, which was so annoying at the beginning, is less so now. Although I've made it with all that white, I've made it a little too light. So I'm going to add in some more yellow ochre, and I'm going to take a touch of that red that I had created before, and I'm going to mix them right on the panel. Now you see I have not added any. I'm just scraping it off that palette knife. And now I'm going to come in with, here I've got both of those, the magenta and the yellow ochre on the palette knife. And I'm going to mix them right on the panel. I can scrape and then go back into it if I want. I'm going to get a little more. Because I want it to extend all the way off the side. So that I don't give the viewers the mistaken impression that I painted that this landscape exists only in this small frame. I want it to look like it extends out further. So now back to the yellow ochre. And I'm going to see if I can mix it too. There we go. All right, now that is probably going to end up a little too busy for my liking, but that's an issue I will just have to deal with later. Okay, now I'm going to work on this middle area next, and I'm going to use some cadmium red, See, I'm just putting it in there with all the other colors that I've been mixing. This is a little bit of permanent violet. I actually put that on the palette in error, so I'll make some use of it now. There we go, mixing it up on the palette, but not completely mixed. And I'm going to come over the middle ground using a palette knife. I'm going to add just a touch of white, and then another. I'm going to mix that pretty thoroughly. That's a little pale, probably going to be, oh, that works pretty well. I surprised myself with that one. And I think I'm going to go back to my mop-like filbert. It's gotten out most of the paint. And I'm going to quickly come into this area and make it a little less transparent as well. And I'm not sure yet what I want to do with this edge, but I don't want it to be too hard. And while I'm at it, I'm going to throw some of that in down here. And back to the palette knife. And let's see if I can have a little fun. I'm going to mix, there's just a touch of the yellow ochre and white. And I'm mixing in with that color, and so you can see that it's very related. I made it a little bit too light, I believe, but well, it may work all right. I need to pull some of it further over. And you see that wonderful texture is all happening because of the broken ground that I have to work on. This would be impossible to do if I had not taken the opportunity, taken the time to create that broken ground. And it takes actually very little time. Okay, I'm not happy with this. This is a little pale, a little too whitish for me. So I want to add, I'm going to add a little more yellow ochre. That's just it, right in with everything else. And then see what happens when I scrape through that with the palette knife. is you see the wonderful complexity that is created. The combination of the texture and the use of different tools. And let's see what happens if I scrape a little bit. Remember, this is called, traditionally this would be called sgraffito. Alrighty then. Now, I want to make these two areas relate a little better. So, because I'm still working with that same pile of paint and adding very few colors, and I'm using colors that are very closely related. I don't usually have much of a tendency to create mud, which is the bane of oil painters. Well, it's also the bane of acrylic painters too, I guess. I'm just trying to make this foreground and the middle ground, I'm trying to get them to interact a little more. And you see, I can do this without a lot of worry, because in the worst case, it could end up that all of this is just underpainting and that none of it would survive into the finished piece. But it all adds complexity. Okay, now I'm going to wash most of the color out of that mop filbert again. When I touch that, it's almost dry. I think I need to make it and this area relate a little more, even though this is going to change. So, still working with that same pile of color, got a little of the permanent violet mixed in, and I want to try a little bit of dioxazine purple. It's a little bit too dark. But that's okay, because I can easily just come on with another layer on top to change both the value and the hue. So now I'm going to let that dry for a bit, and then I'll get back to it. Okay, I've had to reposition things just a little bit because I was running out of room on the camera. And now it's time to start to get serious here. Let's see if I can get serious. So mixing a little more cadmium red. I don't want to make it too light, so a little more dioxazine purple. And that's pretty close value-wise where I want to be. Edges. Edges are important. Okay, now I want to mix a little more purple, little tad of white, and I'm going to see what I can accomplish up here. I think I was just going to do the upper part, but it's very translucent, so I think I'll bring it down. It'll help keep the painting unified. And so now I'm going to mix a little more white, a little more purple. Oh, I love purple. A tad of red to warm it up some. And then I'm going to have another go. You could call that a quick scumble or something. And just another touch of white. See, it just takes a little dab to really change things. Now that's almost a dry brush, and you see I'm again making use of the broken ground I created. But I don't want this to be too textured. This was a little bit damp still, so I was picking up some of the underpainting. Okay, again, just another dab of white. I'm going to use a little cobalt blue in with this one. And I think I'm going to lose that edge. All right, now I do have a range of values here, but I don't have anything that's really dark. And my go-to is what they told me not to do when I was in college. So before I do that, I'm going to pick up a little more of this dusty rose, mix it in with that I was just using, and I want to add it here as a little complexity, and I'm going to bring it down. I like this pretty well right now, so I don't want to mess with it until I have to. Okay, so now I'm going to get out my trusty palette knife again. And well, sometimes I will just use straight black. That's what they told me in college never to do. Never use black because it does not appear in nature. Well, so just to soothe my soul, I'll put a little bit of dioxazine purple in there. You'll never see it, but. So what I want to do here is emphasize this horizon line, and I'm just going to use a palette knife to do that, and letting the broken ground assist me in avoiding some symbol I might be carrying in my head of what that horizon ought to look like. Kind of builds in some variability that I might not be able to achieve through only a thought process. I am mindful of what I'm doing here. You notice I didn't do the same thing all the way across. Now, one problem I have is that from here to here, that's about equidistant in the middle, so I've ended up with a section here that are very much the same. And you don't really want to do that. So I want to leave this open, so I'm just going to put a little more of that line there. Okay, now I think I need to be a little more adventurous. I'm not sure what's going to happen up there yet, but right now I want to bring this down into the middle ground. That's not at all what I had planned. I'm taking a little more purple, a little white, and a little black. There we go. And I think I'm gonna see if I can get something interesting happening down here. Well, that's kind of a nice color. Finger painting. I enjoyed it when I was in kindergarten and apparently never outgrew that. I'm running out of clean fingers, so I'm going to lick this one. So I keep licking my finger and getting a little more paint. And I've got too much there for what I have in mind, so I'm gonna scrape some of it off. And now I'm choosing this is probably almost 1/4 of an inch brush, and I don't need to change the color. But you see, I'm trying to lose the edge between the black and the purple, and that worked pretty well. But I think now I want to enhance it down here. Could be a big mistake, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. All right, thumb. Lick the thumb. And this is more intense, which is okay because it's going to be near my center of interest, which is still going to be up here somewhere, I think. That was a little more intense, so I want to be sure to introduce it into some other areas as well. Now, I'm not happy with that relationship, so I'm mixing 2 colors I already had mixed on there. I think I'm going to wipe off some of that. Oh, still too light. Don't know what I'm thinking. So I gave myself a little more purple. Could you guess if I said, well, now I'm going to choose a really interesting color for this part? You could probably guess pretty well that I'd go to purple first. Okay, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. I'm going to bring that a little more over this way, and this I'm doing a very light touch to kind of scumble those together. All right, next order of business is going to be trying to establish a center of interest and figure out exactly what's going to be happening back there. All right, what I've created here is a lot of potential, and that's exactly where I would like to be at this point of a painting. And you can see that actually I've set it up pretty well with all of this purple and violet and magenta up here. If I want to create a center of interest, I've got a number of options. I can use a shape contrast, value contrast, complexity contrast, hue contrast, etc. And because I don't want to make this difficult for myself, seeing as how it's a demo, I'm going to go to something that is almost guaranteed to work, and that is using some white and some yellow. I'm mixing a lot of white with the yellow because yellow is so transparent that it's very hard to, whoops, we have a train. I'll be back. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, I think the train is mostly through with its business. I feel the need to somehow get this area related to this area a little more, and I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do that. I could take some of this hue and move it into that middle ground, or I could take some of this warm magenta and bring it down here, or even a little bit of the purple. So I'm just going to have to experiment and see what works. So I've got quite a mess of things going on my palette now, but all those colors are they're all in the painting, so I can pretty much use any that I want. I've now moved to a fairly small round brush. And let's see what happens with this. And there I am painting with the belly near the root end, right where it meets the ferrule, and I'm just kind of scrubbing with that, which will mean this brush won't last very long. Now I'm moving from that into the area of a little more purple, so it's a very similar color. And there I'm doing a bit of shape contrast. And I'm going to get a little darker. Now, if you get the feeling that there must be I must have some kind of secret something I do when the camera is off just to confound you and make you think you'll never be a painter. You would be wrong. This is very much the process I go through all the time with each painting, just kind of trying to find my way. And usually I find it. Not always, but usually. And the only big difference between you and I in that regard is that I've done way more than 100. So I got past my first 100 sucky paintings quite some time ago. And though I occasionally do manage to create another work that is quite sucky, it's not often. So there's no magic trick to getting from where you are to where I am. You just need to be attentive and do the work. Now, of course, one of the problems that you may see that I've created here is that once again, I have made things essentially straight across and straight up and down. And there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. But it annoys me because I so often return to that well. You see, I'm bringing a little bit of this color down into the bottom part of the painting so that they are unified, and I think I'm going to go ahead and take that off the bottom, licking the thumb. One reason I'm being so quiet right now is because I'm having to think so hard. Now that I've got that brilliant white, yellow white up there, that presents an opportunity to bring in another quite vibrant color. But I'm also going to use some size contrast, and I'm going to start pulling that down. And you see, I'm not worried about screwing something up here, because it would be pretty easy to get back to the pre-screw up state. And it does happen. All right, now tad more white, just so this doesn't get to be too boring. Fingernail sgraffito. And now I'm going to go darker and a little more intense. Lick the finger again and lose that edge. And then I want a little bit lighter. And a little bit lighter, just adding more white each time. I'm licking my finger. Fingernail. It's going pretty well. I think now I'm going a little bit darker, a little bit warmer again, and I want to link those two passages a little better, and the same over here. Lick finger, there we go, and there. Trying to introduce that color in a number of places to keep the painting unified. Still doing the finger lick. And once again, I'm working the whole painting with that same color. In the name of unity. Okay. All right, I took a little break and had the opportunity to discover that I am so annoyed with the up, down, vertically and across horizontally, that I don't want to do that with this painting. So I'm going to see what I can do to change that. May work, may not. Using the mop filbert again, and I'm going to be coming down this way. I am getting rid a little of the paint that's in the brush there, and I'm going to go, I've got to make a little room now for some yellow ochre and yellow and white, and I'm going to redefine this movement. This is this is what I mean when I talk about being fearless. Of course, fearlessness will ride on its own continuum, and yeah, I was being fearless, but only a little bit. So I'm still trying to create something interesting here that works with what I already had instead of starting again. I'm bringing all those more purplish tones down into the lower part of the painting. And trying to lose more of the horizontal and vertical movements. Now I got that too warm. Well, maybe not if I bring it over far enough. I have some very lost edges here. And I think I'll go back to the palette knife. Same color. Well, I picked up a little bit of something. That's the old finger lick trick. Okay. All right, now that solved the horizontal vertical problem I had created for myself, but as so often happens in paintings, that created another problem. So because I don't understand the relationship between this and this. So, and I don't know exactly how to solve that. But I do have an idea. I'm going to get a little purple and mix it with the color that I was just using. Okay, this is moving me in the right direction, I think. I'm trying to do a number of things at once. I'm still not sure what to do here. So I'm going to do something I had not even anticipated. And I'm going to use some of the really dark purple and black. That's going to make things much more interesting, I think. And I'm switching to a small round brush again. I don't know that I've addressed the issue of understanding the relationship there. But I'm trying to make it less of an issue. Now I'm going to diagonal brush, and I'm going to use a fairly light touch to blend some of those colors together beneath them. Now that's black and purple and a lot of water. All right, I need to break this up. So you can tell that I'm taking things down in value and then back up and down and up and trying to create opportunities. See, it's a very nerve-wracking process trying to get things to relate to each other. And I'm pretty happy with how that's working. I'm using a backstroke. Because I want to interrupt some of these hard edges. And I think I need to bring a little bit of this down. So that's just a very light dry brush that I'm using. And that's as much as I can do today because my back hurts. So I'll have overnight to think about this painting a little bit. Sometimes that's a good idea and sometimes not. But I'll come back and with any luck, I'll finish this up tomorrow.